Hello everyone, myself Abhijit. I'm here to share my project on web development fundamentals, which was built using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript only. Uh, the project was built under 24 hours, and there was no involvement of React component or framework. Moving on, I'll share my screen to share the problem details of the web app. As you can see in the problem statement, it states that the web app is a store management system for pharmacy. By the way, the web application name is Kafene. So in here, it lets you track orders, inventory, and customers. You have to create the admin panel from scratch. I was supposed to create an admin panel from scratch. The web app was not a mobile responsive web app. That means there was no involvement of mobile queries, media queries in here. As in the fourth statement, it's clearly mentioned we were supposed to build an application on HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery only. Um, Moving on, the web app contains the four pages, that is four admin functionalities. First is login, order listing, product listing, and the user listing. Where in user listing we were supposed to search user as well. So this was the problem statement. Moving on to the project structure. I'll discuss with you the project architecture also in here. Um, as you can see in the image, the project architecture was a web app, like it was a pharmaceutical web app having certain admin functionalities. The first functionalities was login and logout. The second, order listing, product listing, and user search. In login logout, I was supposed to have a session management wherein I use local storage for session management throughout the web application. In order listing, and also we were supposed to enable filter fetching. That is, we were told to add some filters in it accordingly so that we can. Same goes with the product listing. There were API call provided for the product listing page. In that, the data was supposed to get fetched, and also based on filter fetch, user search, API call, data fetch, and filter fetch checkbox. The same thing was implemented for this page as well. Moving on, I'll share you the web application first. In here, as you can see, it's a web application, Kafene, which was a pharmaceutical web application. In here, uh, first we will log in. This we will discuss the functionalities and then we'll get into the coding part. After login, we can see there was an alert message popped up. So everything which was mentioned in the problem statement and the scenarios are covered in here. In orders, as mentioned, the API call was provided. In here, we were to structure the data and accordingly fetch and present it into the page. In orders, as you can see, there are four filters category provided: new, packed, in transit, and delivered. In here, based on our selection, I was supposed to fetch the data and accordingly present in this page. As you can see, if I select only new, I'll see I'll see the status new in here. Similarly, moving on to the next page, product. In product page, the same data was provided. The backend data was provided. The API call was provided, and we were supposed to fetch that data according to the filter given. There were two filters involved in this page: this expired and low stock. Uh, there were certain conditions which I'll discuss later. There were two conditions which were supposed to check and accordingly present data in this page. As you can see in expired, if we unselect this, there's a lot of data. As this initially, we were supposed to select all the checkboxes. So Since all the checkboxes are selected, there are the data which we are receiving is expired and having low stock. So this will be the data. In users functionality, in users we were supposed to check how many users are there. This also in the backend, this also gets a API call here. From that API call, we receive data having with particular constraints. User avatar, in here the icon was there, profile icon, full name, date of birth, gender, current location. And in this users, there's one functionality we were supposed to check in, that is full name search. In here, if we try to type something and check, we were supposed to get the subset. We were supposed to get the name, the record of that particular name having the subset of that particular string. That is, if I've given AC in here, I'll have to check whether AC is present in anyone's full name or not. As you can see in here, AC is there. In here, AC is there. So whatever subset we'll try to get, try to input in here, and after hitting enter or selecting reset, we will be able to see all the filtered data. This was the functionality of the page. I'll quickly go to the crux as to what every page do. In orders, whatever orders been placed by the users are placed or showed in here. In products, whatever projects are available from the Kafene's end, that is the company's end, will be shown in here. And all the users data, that in how many customer base is present in here, we can see it in here. Whatever user base is there, we will be able to see in here. And we do have a search functionality in here. We can search it by name. There's one constraint here. We have to input at least 2 characters, then only we'll be able to reset or check the user functionality, user search functionality. If we try with just 1 character, we will get a pop-up that please enter at least 2 characters. This was the functionality of the web app. Now I'll quickly go through the source code and explain you how did I perform the coding part in here. As you can see, in this image, there are four to five functionalities. So depending upon that, there are 4 to 5 uh, JavaScript files, HTML file, and as well as CSS files. Moving on, I'll first go with the flow, that is index. Since index we can skip index. It has the same functionality of login, so we'll quickly jump on login. In the login, I'll discuss the HTML part first. I've created the basic structure of every HTML page. I haven't included everything. I just have designed the schema, that is whatever file will have as in static data. I just have mentioned that in the HTML pages. As you can see in this login, I've just created the login form. In order HTML page, I've created the order HTML data. I haven't included any of the record uh, beforehand. I've just included the table heading, that whatever the heading will be present, I've just included that is this one. Okay, whatever data we receive is through JavaScript, dynamic JavaScript scripting. So I've just created the schema in the HTML files. Similarly, for product HTML, you can see there's a schema present. There's no any data freehand given in the HTML files. Similarly, for users, in users, we can see the schema is present. There's no data pre-written in the HTML files. Now, jumping on the JavaScript, the main part, I've used CSS file for designing all the for designing and giving styles to all the elements. You can refer through my GitHub link. I'll be providing that in my description. I'll not be discussing the CSS part. since every element has been tagged with its CSS uh, CSS attributes. So as you can see in the web app itself, I have only given HTML data in the HTML file. There's nothing CSS attributes in here. Jumping on to the JavaScript functions, JavaScript files. First of all, I've created the base.js folder. Now what I'll do is I'll quickly go through the document which we were given, and based on that, I will explain you everything. As first, the login page, we were given a screen design. We were given a screen design. We were supposed to create the same screen design. The login form and the functionality goes like this. The login form has only one validation, which is username and password should be the same. So as you can see in here, if I go to the login form, in here, I when the user clicks on the login form that submit button, I check whatever the value I get from the username and password input field, and accordingly I create a post action wherein after successful login, the page directly jumps on the order.html page. Moving on, if the values differ, then show an alert which says please enter the valid credentials. As you can see in here, I'll quickly go through the uh, web app again. If we type, the catch in here is whatever data whatever keyword we give in here must be the same. The username and password must be the same. If I give ABHI, then password will be the same. Okay. After hitting enter, I get pop up that login successful. After clicking OK, I get the action jumps onto the order.js page. Again, if I try something ABH and I try password something else, then it will give me please enter valid credentials. Moving on, um, if the values are the same, then send the call to backend on success, show an alert which says login successful, and redirect the page to order page. As you can see in here, after successful login, our action jumps onto the orders.js page. Similarly, the next scenario was you have to maintain user session, that is the user closes the browser and comes back. He or she should be able to see the correct logged in status. In here, I'll explain you the things. Uh, what the scenario was, if I close this and I try to log in directly, and if I try to log in directly, um, yeah, in here, suppose I go to order.page, then I'll be able to see that I'm already logged in here. Similarly, if I go to product page, I can see it jumps onto the product page. Similarly, if I go to the users page, I can see it goes directly to the users page. It doesn't go to the login page. But if I'm logged out in here, and if I try to uh, log in the same, if I try to open the same page that is ordered directly, then it goes to the login page first because we have logged out now. So we have maintained a session in here through local storage, window.local storage, where whenever the user is logged in and haven't logged out, it captures the credentials in the local storage and then accordingly gives us the result. As you can see, if I even go to the product page, I get uh, the login form first. But if I already logged in, after I've already logged in and I see if I go to orders, then it jumps on orders. If I go to product, it jumps on product. So we have maintained that part through local storage. I'll explain to you the source code. In here, um, first of all, when I've used the jQuery part, that is .ready function, where whenever the page gets load, first of all, it will see whether the contents are logged in or not. So it will see First of all, it will get local data login, and it will check whether, and it will replace that with window.order.html. That means if like whenever the user is logged in, as you can see in this submit button, if the user has logged in, it goes after the successful result, it will go to the order.html page, but also at the same time, as you can see here, it will set the local data that is login and true. What this means is, um, like I've created a base.js file at first, wherein I will get the local data. First of all, we will set the local data in the login.html page, because after login, we'll create a local data function where it will create environment that the user has already logged in with the key login. So in here, first of all, it will check whether, uh, first of all, after visiting every file ordered, every JavaScript file, it will check whether the user has logged in or not. If the if the user has not logged in, that means if get local data is not login, it will jump onto login.html. Okay. If not, then it will directly go to the page which we are giving from our end. That, for example, if the user has already logged in, and if we close the browser and we go to the order.html page, then if it will jump on order.html page. But on the other hand, if the user has not logged in and it goes to the order.html page, it will jump onto the login.html page first. For logout, whatever local storage we are giving on beforehand, so that the session will be maintained, we'll clear that session and move on to the login.html page. Moving on, I will also like to mention that in base.js, I have pre-written all the URL which I will be using for API calls in the other JavaScript files. So that is it for the base.js. Moving on to the order.js page. In here, as the functions, as per the functionality, whatever data we will receive, as you can see, whatever data we will receive is through API call given in the base.js file. As you can see in the order.url, I've given the order.url in here. In here, after API call, I will receive the data, whatever which has been present at the backend. Now, I've here implemented certain functionalities, filter functionalities in here, as you can see. So whenever I select or unselect the checkboxes, my data get rendered automatically. So for that, the piece of code I've written is, in here, first of all, it will check login. The way I've told, for session management, it will check whether the get local data is to the login is set to login and true or not. If true, then it will jump directly on this order.page. If not, then first it will go to the login.html page, and accordingly we'll have to proceed further. After check login functionality, it will go to get table content. In this get table content function, first we will receive all the data which has been present at the data backend. So in this get table content, as you can see, we have passed the order URL which is given in base.js file. So after the successful result, I will get the result into all content variable. All content in here I have declared it in base.js file. What does it mean is, we will receive an object array of objects through this result. So all content itself will be declared as array of objects in here. So as you can see, I have console.log and in here as well. So when I try to inspect the elements in here, when I try to inspect elements in here and go to console, you can see there are array present, array of objects. So all these are objects. Okay, the ID, customer date, amount, status, all the records are the object in here, and I have stored in that in array. So after that, I'll get the get table content. I'll get all the results from the data fetch. Moving ahead, I will call the show table content function. In this show table content function, I will check whether we have checked the checkboxes or not. As you can see, hash new hash pack dot prop is an attribute in here. So I will see whether the checkboxes are checked or not. This is basically used for the filter functionality. So first of all, I'll check whether all the checkboxes are checked or not. Moving ahead, then I'll have to filter the data based on the checkboxes selected. In here, I've used the filter function of JavaScript to jot down all the filtered data selected via checkboxes. So whenever I see whether new ID, that means prop jot checked, that is if the checkbox is selected and the value dot order status means the value of that order status is true or new, depending upon what we see in the order.html page. As you can see, the status in here, status name is delivered, new, delivered, in transit, packed. So based on that string matching, we will return true. That means whatever elements are jotted down will be filtered in the current content array element. So accordingly, we will get the uh, rows, rows, that is data records. Okay. Then after jotting down all the content, it will render table data. What render table data will do is whenever there is any change on the page, it will render the data automatically. That means if there's any change, that means if we select or unselect any of the checkboxes, that will render the data and accordingly present the jotted down records. For example, in here I've used the DOM manipulation, as you can see in here. So whenever there is a change in here, it will append to the existing table body. The current content don't line. This means whatever data that has been jotted by the filters. As you can see, all content is the array of object which I get handy through data fetch API call. Current content is an array of object which I filter it from the checkboxes. So I'll render the current content array of element in here to render the data. Moving on, going to the products HTML page, it's the same thing, just the API call is different. In here, in the base.js as well, I've given the uh, product URL, that is the API call. So whenever I go to that product page, I'll be able to see, if I unselect all, that is I am seeing all the data. Okay, all the products available from the Kafene end. So in here, the same functionality, filter functionality I'll be performing, but with the different attributes, that is expired and low stock. So I do have two columns present in here, as you can see, expired date and stock. Okay, so uh, going into the page first, as you can see in here, product listing page. On page load, send the call to the backend to fetch all the product. As you can see, if I go to product, it will go to the backend and accordingly will fetch the details. Fine. Then user should be able to filter the product using the checkboxes based on expiry and stock. As you can see, product can be used, products available at the Kafene end can be filtered or jotted down using the filter boxes. Again, a product is expired if the expiry date is less than current date. That means what the date which is today, that is 8th of February 2021. So if the product expiry date is crossing from today, then it is expired. For the product low stock, if the stock is less than 100, we have to filter that element. So these two conditions I'll explain via coding, whatever I have been implemented in that part. So I'll directly jump to the product.js folder file. In here, the same thing will repeat first. We'll first check login. We'll implement check login function. The check login function will go to the login.js base.js file. If it's properly logged in, then it will directly we can directly traverse through the product.html page. If not, first we have to log in and then only we can traverse to product.html page. Second thing, get content. It's similar to the first order.js file. First, we'll receive all the data present via fetched via API call. So whatever URL we are passing, that is product URL for this page. Whatever URL will give, will get the result, and accordingly we'll store it to all content variable. That means all content in here is array of object variable. Then we'll go to show table content. In here, show table content function, it's the same. First we'll check whether all the checkboxes present in here are checked or not, and accordingly we'll jot down the records and fetch the details in the page. And the third thing is, after show table content, first it will go to setting table content. That is, it will go to in here, check is check all the checkboxes are selected or not, and accordingly jot down the rows records. Then it will go to render table data function. It will see what it will see whether current content dot length is greater than 0. That means we are receiving data, we are receiving at least one data or not, and accordingly will create a DOM manipulation to append a dynamic data, to render dynamic data. It's the same functionality. The condition which we were supposed to check is whether the filtered value, okay, whatever if we are selecting, if we are selecting expired, then that means whatever we are selected uh, is old. Like if uh, if the date of expiry is greater than today's date, then it is not expired. If the date of expiry is less than today's date, then it is expired. Okay. So in here, what we will do is, first of all, the condition it if expired ID, then if expired ID, that is this expired ID is a function. It will return a boolean value. Okay. Uh, by this, what we will get is the difference whether true or false. Like if the date provided is less than today's date, then the function will return false. But if the date provided, if the expiry date is greater than today's date, then will return, oh sorry, if the date provided is greater than, if the expiry date is greater than today's date, then it will return false. But on the other hand, if the date provided is less than today's date, then it will return true. So in this condition, if expired ID, that is if true, then it will return expired. That means the uh, the record, the product is expired. So accordingly, we will filter the expired elements, and store it to the current content array of object element. Similarly, for low stock, it's just one condition we have to check, whether the value of low stock, whether the value of stock is less than 100. If the value of stock is less than 100, then it will go to current content dot filter. And in the similar fashion like the previous page, that is order.js, it will render the table data. As you can see, append, that is it will render through DOM manipulation, dynamic data manipulation. Moving on to the last page, that is users functionality. In here you can see all the user base that is present in the application will be showed in here. The first step will be the same, to fetch all the users data via API call. So the first thing, as as of every page, it will check whether user is already logged in or not. Second thing is, it will go the get content function. In the get content function, first of all, it will go to the UR API URL provided. Then accordingly, we'll fetch the data. We will render that data. We will give the data to the render table content variable, render table content function. In this, it will check, it will receive the data from of the function call, and after that, through DOM manipulation, we will append the dynamic data. The catch in here is we have there is no filter provided here, so we have not implemented the filter functionalities. The catch in here is we have to search the user's data by this input field. So the search functionality which has been included is the name functionality. So we will be searching via we will searching entering the subset of the full name. So any subset present in the full name can be filtered in here. See, and all the full name, that is string. I am considering the full name as string. So full name in here is string, and as we typed AC in here, we will be able to see AC. In the second record also we can see AC. In the third record also we can see AC. Similarly, if we go LV, as you can see, the substring is present LV in here. The other condition we were supposed to check is uh, on the success, if admin tries to search user API by typing less than 2 characters, then show an alert which says please enter 2 credentials. So we can check this here as well. If I type A and try to search, so I'll click on OK in here. Similarly, okay. Similarly, if I try to search everything and reset in here, if there's no string present, it will present with no data. If there's an empty input field and if we hit enter, it will hit reset. That will present the string. Type something and hit reset. If we type something and have only 1 character to it, it will show us the message. Moving ahead, so this was all the functionalities included for the project. The last functionality was the logout functionality. In this case, after log out, I'll be able to see that I'm logged out and current screen popping up is login. Also, to check the functionality again, we can see if now we traverse through the other pages, that is product, order, or user, then we can see it will directly first jump onto login page. But if we have already logged in here by the same credentials, after login, successful login, we can see if we directly jump onto the user, then it will go to the user's page. So every functionality which was mentioned in the document, which was mentioned in the problem statement, has been covered in here. Uh, there are few question and answers which have been asked from my end. So I'll be answering those questions. First question is, the first question is, how did you implement the filter functionality on the order listing page? You can do a screenshot. Okay. So filter functionality on the order listing page, as I've already mentioned, I'll go to the order listing page. In here, first I'll discuss the order HTML file. In order HTML file, as you can see in here, I've just implemented the static data which will be present on the order.html page. I have not included any API calls. First of all, it will check whether the user has already logged in or not. If the user has already logged in, then it will proceed for calling the table content. In the get table content, as you can see in here, In the get table content, it will first call the order URL, that is the API call provided, through which we will get a result. If we try to print a result, we will get array of object, as we have already seen, after logging in. So if we try to inspect the element in here, we receive. Next, moving on, then it will go to the show table content function, which is directly just about this function. First, it will go to the setting table content in this. First, what it will check is whether the checkboxes provided in the order HTML page are checked or not. That means if this is checked or not. Moving ahead, first it will take whether the filter functionality is checked or not, and accordingly store it into the function, constant function. Uh, next, uh, uh, Next we have to traverse. We have to check whether all the records are there, and we have to check if if the particular record is been filtered or not. So there are four filter functionalities in here: new, packed, in transit, and delivered. So it will check it will first traverse through all content, that is array of object, which we have got from the API call. Then it will go to current content. Then we have assigned one current content array of object element. What it will do is it will filter all the elements after implementing filter functionalities. So in here, in the if statement, we are checking if the filtered are returned to the current content array of elements or not. So in here we will check new ID and value dot order status is uh, new. That means if we have checked this checkbox, and the and if we have checked the checkbox and the status is exactly matching or not, so in that case it will return true. That means it will add the element to the current content array of objects. Similarly, for the other functions, other filter functionalities as well: packed ID, delivered ID, and in transit ID. So it will check. There are two things it is checking. First, whether these filters, that is this checkbox, are checked out or not, and similarly it will check whether the string matches the status string or not, and accordingly it will filter the data. Then after set table content, it will go jump onto the render table data function. In this render table data function, what it will do is, as you can see in order HTML page, we have given only the heading and the T body is empty. So whatever data we will receive through our API call and render data, we will fetch that data in this T body element. So in order.js, as you can see, I've given the T body element in here. That means whenever the data I will receive, I will fetch or append the data to this T body element. Okay, and the count functionality has also been included in here. As you can see, the count is 100. If I unselect anything, then the count will reduce, and accordingly if we select, the count will be increased. um, After this, I will filter out the column which I want to show on this table, which we were supposed to show on this table, and accordingly present the data and render the data. For rendering data, the current content is used, not the all content, because the current content will be varied depending upon the selection of filters or no filters. So in that was the filter functionality implemented for order.js. Moving on to the next question, that is, how did you implement the search functionality? You can do a screenshot. Okay. For search functionality, it was implemented in the users HTML page. As you can see, there were several users, and we were asked to implement a search functionality depending upon depending upon two conditions. First, input, it is getting input or not. If there is no input and we try to reset, then every data will get fetched in here. And after, the second thing was, we will check whether input string is at least two character or not. If it's one character, then it will give us a pop-up message that please enter at least two character. And second, it will reset. And second, if we try to search with two characters or two or more than two characters, then it will give us the proper result. Moving on to the functionality part, the same things have been implemented. First, it will check whether we have logged in or not. Then we will go to the get content function. It will save in the render table content. In get content, first it will take the data and it will go to the table content. In here, I've directly implemented the render table content because there is no any filter search present in here. So we are skipping that part and directly rendering our data based on the search functionality in here. So going ahead, I'll append the data to the current content element. Then in here, we have to implement the search functionality. So for that, I've whenever user clicked on submit button, that is the search form button, that is the reset button in here in the form. Uh, if we enter something, like if the input field is empty and if we search, it will present us all the data. So as you can see, if input val is not trimmed, that is if it's empty or if not there, then accordingly it will return the result. If it's nothing in the input field, then it will present all the results. In here, condition is if input val dot length is greater than 1, that means if 0 and 1, as the string index starts from 0, so it will check that if character entered are two characters, at least two character or not, that is A, C. If it's just A, that means the character index is 0. And if it's two out there, then at least one, that means it will work. So it will go to the search URL plus input variable, input val. That in here, search URL, as mentioned in the base.js, I have given the search URL in here. So what it will do is, I will copy this thing. I will go to the variable in here. Okay, and based on our search, for example, I am typing AL in here. So based on our search, I will get this data. Similarly, if I apply same thing in here, if I apply same thing in here, I'll receive the same data. ID2 Almirahausen, as you can see, ID2 Almirahausen, then ID8. I can see ID8 also in here. Somewhere down the line there will be 4. As you can see, there is 4 as well. So 4 as well. So this is the basic search functionality which has been implemented. Uh, if we discuss the coding part in here, it will just check whether, first of all, whether the input string has at least two characters or not, and accordingly we will parse the URL to the search content function. In the search content function, what it will do is it will take the URL as given, that is a URL which was given in the base URL plus the search keyword which we are giving. So accordingly it will get the search content result and accordingly render the table data. So whatever, as you can see in here, as as you can see in here, since the full name I've given AL, if I gave AB, then accordingly I will get, there's nothing, there's no data present on the keyword AB. If I try to search in here as well, I'll be able to see nothing in here. As you can see, I've typed AB, nothing. If I type EC and C, there is one data present. So similarly, if I try EC in here, I'll be able to see one data, one record present, array of object present. So same things goes into this. It's the same functionality like filter function. It's just we are not checking, we are not implementing checkboxes in here. The functionality is the same. Whatever data we are searching, it will go like this, and it will search, and accordingly it will fetch us the details. So this was the second question. Moving on to the third and last question. Can you please explain what is hoisting in JavaScript? Hoisting, okay. So hoisting, it's a concept of JavaScript. As you can see, I've created a file in here. Now what I'll do is, hoisting in proper definition, what I can say is, we can declare variables after its usage. That means we can use the variable for its usage. This is the basic understanding of hoisting. For example, now if we are using checkvar variable, we will to it. We have not declared it yet, but now if we declared it, now if we declare it, it will still work. Now if we try to print this element, as you can see, if now we try to print this element, you can see it will still work. Okay, so this concept is called hoisting. um there's one catch in here. After declaring something, if we declare things again, for example, now we have printed the element as well, and now we are again declaring something. Okay, it will still work. It will still work. Now for example, now we are not declaring it, we are just changing the value, and then printing the printing and logging the data after the two declaration. Then it will take the latest declaration in here. As you can see, the answer we are getting is 10. So this is called hoisting. We can similarly implement the same thing via function. For example, we can implement a check multiplication function, check mul. um, we will call that function 3 comma 5, 2 comma 5. In here I'll declare the function later on, that is after its usage, check mul. So x comma y, in here I'll return x into y. So if I do this, I'll be still be after, I just have to print the element also in here. As you can see, for 2 into 5, that is 10. So it's just the basic understand. The basic understanding stays is that we can implement the function or the variable before its actual declaration. I believe everything is covered from my end. There's no questions, anything. Thank you everyone. I hope I did well. Thanks a lot. I'll end my session here.